All right, what's up, everyone? So we have the CO in hand, and I'm starting to do a little bit of cleanup, getting into some next tasks, and getting organized for the next phase here. And I thought I would make a quick video that just kind of talked through where we are, what we learned, what we did, and what we might not do again. So, look, candidly, probably never going to build a house again, mostly because I'm 51 now, pretty much destroyed my body doing this. And this was kind of probably a one and done, both financially, time-wise, material-wise, and, physically. That being said, I am going to just rotate around to the house here and kind of talk through a few things that we did. And this might be a little bit of a disorganized video, but I figured I would do a quick brain dump on things that went really well, things that I would have changed for the future. If you're ever thinking about building a house yourself, what might you do differently? You're going to have to bless this mess. The property is an absolute disaster. I've got stuff all over the place. That is one of the first things that I would change. So we had one of those cheap $1,000 Amazon, I don't know, they're made out of tissue paper steel. It's probably 828 gauge or something. It's all blown down in the valley. But one of those sheds was on a platform over here. In year one, that blew over. It blew straight down into the valley. I'm still working on cleaning it up. So what I did was I said, look, I kept the platform. I had built a nice platform for it, and I just rebuilt a new shed on top of it. That shed is, I've actually forgotten, but I think 10 by 12. Definitely, item number one, I would have built a much, much bigger shed. At least 14 by 18, maybe 12 by 20, 12 by 24, 14 by 20, something like that. Reason being, as you can see, the shed's open. It's always open, and that's because we get mice in there. But bigger thing is that we just don't have enough storage in it. It is not actually big enough for all of my needs. Now, the shed's nice. It's not done yet. I've got some trim to put across the top and some soffit and fascia work and things like that. I will be fixing all of those things. But the biggest problem is it's just not useful. Probably as a lawnmower storage location, it would be great. But if you're doing a construction project, you need a lot more room. You've got materials that you want to keep protected and out of the elements. You've got, valuable stuff that you don't want to get stolen, and you're going to need a lot of room. Now, Connex containers, very popular. I think they're probably a great idea. Didn't really make sense for us because the county actually doesn't allow them. Even though people do it anyway, we didn't want that to be a reason for them to shut us down. So number one, would have done a much, much bigger shed. Number two over here, we definitely have some good stuff going on with a cistern, but I would have done a little bit more of a smart setup here. So the problem is the cistern is gravity feed down to the house. Now, it's got about, I don't remember, I measured this once, but I think it's about a 35 foot drop. It gets a little bit of pressure, but not very much. System's hard to prime. And more important, if I've got units like the camper, you can see that, oh, hey, the bear's been in the trash again. That's great. I'm going to have to deal with that. You can see that I put a hydrant down here to put over into the camper, or once we pull the camper out, eventually this will be kind of a workshop studio, pottery studio, maybe guest house, something like that. The problem is there's no water pressure there. So the house and this unit both need pumps. Now the problem with that is that this is actually very low risk. If there's a leak underground, there's no pressure in it, you're not going to lose a lot of water. But that means that I can't just hook a hose up here and go water something. I've got to have the house pump or something else driving it. So what I really wish that I would have done if I was a little bit smarter about this is that I would have put some type of small pump house here with a modestly sized pump, a solar panel, and a battery. And I think that would have given me a lot more flexibility in terms of being able to have the site have more useful water delivery to things that it needs. Not terribly worried about it, but it is one of those things I'd really like to improve. Another thing that I can't really show you, but down in this cistern here, level measurement is a big problem. That's a Mopica tank sensor. No good. Do not recommend it. That is, I think, the TD200. Forgot the exact model number on it, and I don't know if it says it here on the label. Oh yeah, it's on the top here, TD200. So obviously, come on, Mopica. You got an outdoor rated unit. You can't make a sticker that stands up to a year of UV. I put that thing in there. It has been impossible to calibrate. It's not reading accurately. It's not working. I am a big fan of Mopica. I've got a bunch of their other sensors. Down under the propane tank here is a Mopica level sensor for that. And I've had really good luck with them. But the TD200 on a riser, on a cistern, is not doing it. I would have done a barometric pressure unit. They make stainless units that you can submerge in the cistern. And I definitely would have done that and come up with a more accurate reading. Another thing that I don't love is, you can't see this here, but down in the bottom of the cistern is a valve. And the way you should do this, and what you can see, I've started excavating to be able to do this, but what you really want is what they call a curb stop. That's a valve that is buried under the ground, has kind of a dome over it, and then a riser comes up to a shutoff valve or a shutoff kind of key or port or something that sits above ground here. That allows you to shut the water off on the very outlet of it. What our contractor did is he ran about 2.5 feet of tubing into the tank and put the valve in there. That means that I've got a rope that I've got to pull up to be able to shut the thing off, and that tube is like very stiff. It doesn't want to sink. It's buoyant. So that tube doesn't allow us to draw all the water out of the cistern. Even though the port is on the bottom of the cistern, the tube that comes into the tank floats a few feet up into the tank here, and the valve is on the end of that. I have tried weight bags. You can see the remnants of one of them that kind of dissolved before I pulled it out. I've tried all sorts of things to get that to lay down on the bottom of the tank, and it's just not working out. So I really wish that we had done a better job with the valve and the cistern, and this is hot mess here is going to be one of my projects for the upcoming future. All right, let's get into the house. Now for this outside stuff. All right, so the house came together pretty well. I definitely think I would have done a better job on my roof intersection. You can see a little bit of a dip there. It's not super noticeable, but I could have done a better job. One thing that I definitely would have changed here is that I initially set up on the roof for 24 to 30 solar panels. I thought that I would have solar panels on this roof, maybe on that segment of the deck, and then like 3 strings running along the main roof. Absolutely unnecessary. Those are 400 watt bifacials. That means that sunlight gets through them, bounces off the roof, comes and hits the underside, comes right back out. It's only a 10% efficiency boost, but man, oh man, this system, running the whole house, doing everything that I needed to do, which admittedly is not that much yet, but still, we'll run it down to maybe 60% by the evening if I'm using a lot of light and other services and the water pump's running and I'm running the washing machine and stuff like that. But it'll be fully recharged on a sunny day by 10 a.m. And you can see that this string here only has 10 panels on it. I've got room for an 11th over there. With 11 panels on a single string, I have more than enough power. Now, during the winter, if they get covered by snow, that gets sharply reduced. But the thing is, every panel on the roof would. So having more panels doesn't fix a snow problem. We need the generator anyway, and we have one. So I think what I would have done is just maybe done a little bit more thought into the aesthetics of this. I definitely would have run the conduit for the panels inside the house. Would have been a lot easier to do the routing. And just come up underneath the field instead of running that galvanized 1-inch conduit up along the roof. But look, it's not the worst thing in the world, but definitely something I would have changed, so there's a thought. Now, a common comment that we get from folks is, why don't we have an overhang? Very common to have anywhere from a 12 to 24-inch overhang on the ends of the house, the gable ends. And this is called monopoly framing, and it's an aesthetic choice, but it is not the reason why I did that. Simple truth was, I'm absolutely terrified of heights. Working on the roof was one of the worst parts of this entire project. I never want to have to do it again, even though I have to get up there and fix some shingles that blew off. And the overhang was technically challenging. They framers make it look really simple, but those guys are standing up completely unsupported, and I'm up here, it's gusting 45 miles an hour, threatening to blow me off the roof, and I just couldn't do it. So I actually have notches cut for lookouts that are meant to come out here and support a ladder frame style extension here. So that there's a bit of an overhang on the eaves to protect the house, but I just didn't do it. Would I change that again? I wouldn't change the decision that I made. So the reason why I backed off from doing it, I think, was sound. I kept getting stuck. It was stalling the project. This was about 18 months ago. We were not closed in. We were really behind. We're getting all kinds of moisture and honestly, a foot and a half of snow falling in the house because the roof wasn't on. I made the tough decision to keep moving. And I said, okay, that's the thing that I'm stuck on. I'm going to keep going. Let's ditch that. I think the decision was sound. But I think there was a time in this project when I did have a lift on site. Had I realized how difficult that was going to be for me personally, I'm not saying in general, but just me with my fear of heights and everything, I think I would have taken that moment with the lift to actually build those out. Now, in terms of actually providing like protection to the structure, yeah, not so much. I mean, the wind and rain just drives like horizontally at the house. It's not like it would have kept wind off there, but it is an aesthetic thing. All the structures that I've ever grown up and lived in did have that kind of overhang. And I think I just would have preferred it. So it would have been one of those things where, yeah, if I did it all over again, I would have thought that through and made that happen right at that moment in time. Coming into the post and pier, honestly, I don't regret it. There are people that do post and pier and they come back and they're like, oh, totally wish I hadn't done this. Would I have changed the decision? Yes. I would have done a perimeter foundation. I think I would have done either ICF or CMU, something relatively simple there. I would have done a perimeter wall. But I don't think post and pier was a bad choice for us. It just didn't save anything. Well, I've got 27 piers under the house, and that doesn't count the extras for the decks. Doing all those excavations, digging all those holes, was several days of work. Renting a mini excavator, doing all that work, getting all the holes dug, getting all the footings laid in. I've got some really big footings that I think I have one over here I might be able to show. Yeah, if you see, if you look, this is what's at the bottom of the holes. I've got one left from the project. The sun is really taking a beating on it, but you get the idea. This is what a Bigfoot footing looks like. So that is at the bottom of every one of those columns, as well as 4 pieces of rebar. Every one of them, I made a rebar cage, just kind of a ring, about 6 inches wide, that goes down, and there are 4 pieces of rebar that go down with 6-inch legs that I bent around using a bender at a 90-degree angle, so they come over into the edges. And I made it so they kind of come into the corners of these. They are incredibly stiff and strong. Tons and tons of support for the house. So let's just go look at this. Now, here's the thing, though. That is a very, very typical deck footing. Insanely oversized to support a deck. That is a very atypical, but mathematically fine support for the house. And I have I think a 4x safety margin when I did the math. I've forgotten now what I landed on, but I have enormous safety margin. I'm not worried about the structure at all. The thing is, it took so much time. It was all those holes, 27 holes, all the laser alignment using strings. Didn't even get the alignment quite perfect. You can see here's one that's not quite right. It's a little bit off center. Nothing that's really big. Nothing that's actually troubling, but just took forever. Now, post and pier, one of the nice things is that once you get the posts on, you run the posts long, or run them wild, if you will. Run a laser level around on an evening, go around and mark them all, and you can get all insanely accurate cuts. So this house is dead level. That I appreciate. That technique, I think, gave me a better level structure than I would have achieved myself. It's just that in terms of actually not just doing this, I could have just dug a perimeter trench, right? I didn't need quite as many of these. I would have dug a few footings in the middle of it just for the beams to support them every 6 to 8 feet. But in terms of the perimeter, all of these posts around the perimeter, I dug every single hole. Every hole took like 2 hours. Times 27, 52 hours. It took several days of excavation from sunup to sundown and $350 a day in rental fees to dig all those holes. Now, okay, granted, I'm not the best with the Mini X, but I did actually fairly well. It's just that it's extremely hard, rocky soil. A Mini X with a 12-inch bucket is really only making a bit of a dent. So when you're digging those holes, you're always running into the limits of the machine, right? The machine can only clear so much material, pull so large of a rock out of a hole. It's not that I just was learning and I really couldn't do it. Honestly, within a few hours, not to toot my own horn, but I think I got pretty decent. The problem really was that it just digging round holes with a mini excavator is not its skill. It took a lot of maneuvering, a lot of side crabbing and everything else. If I had wanted to, I could have gone and just trenched this outer edge. This whole row, this footing row right here, I could have just dug one trench. And the way a Mini X works, you just back up. So the bucket is in the front, and you just dig, swing, deposit the material, back up a little bit, dig, swing, deposit. I could have just gone straight down this channel and run one footing all the way down here, done CMU up out of the ground. I still could have done posts if I really wanted to, but honestly, I probably just would have built a stem wall, and then I would have been done. Honestly, I think it would have taken half as much time, probably not much more in material costs, and that's would have given me what now I have to skirt anyway, and my skirting plan is probably going to be cinder blocks. So it's kind of ironic that I'm actually going to rebuild something I could have just built in the first place. Post and pier was very pleasant to do. I don't think it saved anything. I think it'll end up, honestly, being a wash, if not costing more. All right, what's next? This window wall. Okay, so I am really, really struggling. Let me get a better view here to get these windows aligned. Now, I am new. First house I've ever built. Didn't do so bad. Hey, the house exists. We got a seal. The thing is with the window wall, this wasn't like I dug myself a hole out of my skill level. It's not like that. But what I really didn't do a very good job of is when you set up the rough opening for a window, look, your lumber is never going to be perfect, okay? Dimensional lumber, it's just not. It's going to warp, it's going to twist, you're going to have some bow in it, whatever. So, and good experienced framers know how to work around that, and I didn't do so bad. The problem is what I didn't realize, and it should have been obvious, but I'm going to tell you now, you can laugh at my mistake. They can be too narrow, they can be too short, they can be too big, they can be too wide. What they absolutely cannot be is out of square. If those holes are out of square, here's what happens. Let's say this hole here is too wide. Let's say it's a half an inch too wide. And it's a half an inch too wide at the top. Great. Now your window has a half an inch of movement either way. But if you take that and you make it a parallelogram and you just tilt those sides just slightly, it does not take more than a degree to be half an inch out top to bottom. Here's what happens. The bottom corner and the top corner will pinch. And that means that half inch of extra space that you had is not a half inch of extra space. It gets eaten up. This window here in the bottom left corner needs to come that direction by about a half an inch. It's out of line. The windows above it are aligned. This one is not. And it's because some of my framing members on this side are actually bowed slightly this direction. So the problem is that this corner is pinching and I can't move it that way, even though the whole rough opening is actually, it's more like an inch oversized. So you really, around windows, you really have to watch your framing and make sure it is your straightest, most laser perfect lumber around your windows. That is something it's really hard to change later. So what I'm going to have to do, and what I'm already working on, is I got to pull this window out, and I'm going to have to take a planer and shave down the framing a half an inch. And by the way, it's full of nails, so I'm going to have to find and pull all the nails out. So it's going to be a real pain in the butt to get those windows aligned. So lesson learned, that's a thing. Now, next thing, Prosecco. Okay, Pro. I put a Tyvek WRB up on here. Somewhere, if I'm walking around every now and then, if you look through some of my videos, you'll see the staples on the ground that I pulled out because all of it shredded. We have very high winds here and it just ripped it straight off the walls. Now you can see my sheathing is taking it in the shorts as a result. This is all shaggy and furry in here because it's peeling off while the upper sections are still nice and smooth. Why do you think that is? It took me 6 to 9 months to get all the sheathing done. And the lower sections went up first, right? They went up when I was framing. The upper sections went up later when I was doing extra sheathing over open spots, right? So here's what happened, right? That Prosecco, unlike the Tyvek, is rated for 12 months of exposure. And it's been 15 months since I put it up there, so it's failing. Now, I don't blame the company at all. This was my own thing. It took a lot longer than I hoped to put up. But what I didn't calculate on here was on my own timeline was it would have been so easy to zip tape those seams at that time. I used every other product. You can see some Polyguard, there's Vicor. These are the products that were available locally because I couldn't obtain the zip tape. At the time, Lowe's and Home Depot didn't stock it. They do now. They've added that since. But at the time, this was all the material that I could get. And look at it. It's peeling. It's peeling straight off the wall everywhere. It's not sealing at all. Moisture is just pouring right through that window wall. The zip tape, amazing stuff. Not a single bit of it, not an eighth of an inch is peeling anywhere on the house. It is sticking to that as if I nail gunned it on. But the Vicor, the Polyguard, all those other brands, absolute garbage. I wouldn't spend 10 cents on them. I wouldn't have somebody pay me to take a roll off their hands unless they paid me more than it cost me to send it to the dump, because that stuff is absolute garbage. Polyguard, Vicor, I hope you guys are watching this video. Your product is absolute trash. I can't even imagine the world of difference that it is. And by the way, yes, I rolled it. Yeah, I rolled it. I did everything exactly per the installation instructions. The zip tape, great. Polyguard, Vicor, everything's peeling off. What I should have done, though, was taped every single seam on this entire structure, because the thing with the Prosecco is that the large panels, it rolls on very quickly. You can very inexpensively and very quickly achieve a panel surface similar to a zip sheathing at a much lower cost just by rolling the Prosecco R-Guard on. The problem is all the gaps take forever. Tooling the material that is the fast flash or whatever they call it, that's supposed to fill in all the gaps and seams, takes so long. And honestly, with the Prosecco, I just feel like it's not worth it. If I had to do this all over again, I would still use the Prosecco as a roll-on WRB. High wind environment where Tyvek is maybe not going to last. I think it's great. I think it's fantastic. But I would absolutely not use their flashing material. I wouldn't even bother with it. I would just zip tape right over. The zip tape holds on this Prosecco like they're best buddies from third grade. So definitely something I would have changed. Now, I'm standing on the outside of the structure. I think at some point I probably will make an interior video, but I'm running a little long here. I'm at about 22 minutes. So let me just do a quick walk around, call out maybe one or two other small points, and then we'll wrap this up here and maybe pick it up from then on. Next thing that I would have done differently on the outside, I think I probably would have taken a few minutes to install some soffit services like cameras, lights, and things like that while I was setting up the overhangs. And the reason is that under these eaves, you're talking, look, it's about, I think it's 5 feet. I measured it once. I've forgotten what it is, but I'm 6 feet tall. I think it's about 5 foot off the ground. That's 19 feet. That's 23. So you're talking anywhere from 20 to 25, 30 feet up in the air over here. That's an awful lot for a shaky old ladder for a guy that is not in love with heights. So the problem is getting up to install cameras and lights and things like that under these eaves is just not my favorite job in the world. I really, really wish that I would have done a better job getting this end here set up, because I think what's probably going to happen is I'm not going to get it done at all. And I'm going to have to wait until we can afford a lift. And God only knows that could be next year. So at least for right now, I think that I could have done a better job on that part. Now, I am being brave, get no caffeine, and I don't know, maybe a shot of bourbon in me or something, but I am getting some work done on the back wall. You can see I've got some Prosecco to fill in here. That's where we filled in the overframing for what was supposed to be a slider, became a window, and just, schedule wise, I had done the Prosecco at a different time. So I got to Prosecco that over. That's a thing. You can see I'm getting zip tape over all of the areas here that were missed. All these gaps are going to get covered. So we're going to have great air sealing. I'm not worried about that at all. But definitely I would have done this while I was working on it. Again, look down here. Zip tape, Vicor. Fuck Vicor. Just don't even bother with it. Throw it straight in the trash. If it wasn't an environmental impact statement, I would just burn it. Everything is just peeling, the whole thing. So this wall is going to need a lot of work. I don't think I really would have done anything different here, but just, kind of know that. One last thing, and then I'll close out this video. Let's just walk up to the side here. The decks. Oh my God, the decks. Okay, well, look. I swear, I laid out the foundation for this deck. I always talk about being in a windstorm, but that day it was sleeting. It was gusting 45 and sleeting. And I'm a solo guy standing here trying to hold strings taut to try to measure where those footings are going to go. You know what? I didn't do too bad. But I definitely didn't do too great either. So you can see here on this one end, kind of bit of an overhang of my decking material. Whereas on this end, it doesn't overhang at all. And that's because this deck is about 3/4 of an inch out of square. Now, what would I have done differently? Okay, squaring the deck, yes. Look, if you can get a deck square, bully on you. That's a great thing. That's what lasers are for. I'm glad if you got the experience to do that. But if you're a DIY building a deck, I got a tip for you. Your deck is probably going to be a little bit out of square. There's a reason why tile people and drywallers and everybody are always shimming out interior walls, because that stuff's out of square too. Framing lumber, dimensional lumber, is just going to let you down. It's not going to be perfect. That's just the way it is. You're probably going to be a little bit out of square. Even if you're an expert, you're going to be an eighth out. Right? Like, that level of accuracy is just unreasonable to expect when you're working with an organic material. What would I have done differently? Two things. Number one, all this material is warping. And what you'll notice is that this happens a lot with pressure treated. Here, this is a really good example. Hello, deck post. Can you see it? Yeah, that deck post leans more than I do. Drifts way off to the left. It starts here, comes up, and then just goes way off to the left. So everything is out of square here when you're looking at these railings. Why? Because I didn't install it right away. When you buy them, they're straight. They don't stay straight. Do not accumulate dimensional or pressure-treated lumber, any framing lumber, on your site before you're ready to install it. It will not stay put. So I'm going to be redoing a lot of stuff with this deck. It's really low-end material. You can see how much it's warping and cupping everywhere. And I had to meet code for the CO. They needed front and back steps, and we wanted to do a deck. Everything referenced off it, so I went with it. The thing is that if you're going to do a deck, or you're going to do any kind of project, a shed, a deck, a carport, a portico, anything like that, buy your material and install it that day. Maybe the next day, maybe 3 days later, not a month. Do not buy lumber a month before you need it. So that's item number one. If I installed it, it would have been a little straighter because it wouldn't have had the opportunity to warp. The second thing, though, is on a deck. Take a look at this. This is the deck we all grew up with. Everybody's seen a wooden deck. You got boards. There's gaps between the boards. I didn't have a micrometer. The gaps aren't consistent. Is that because of installer error? This gap right here is wider than that gap. Is that installer error? No. Because I bought one of those clamp systems that spaces them. My spaces were an exact 1/8 inch for every board. What happened? The boards shrink. It's wood. That's what it does. It's an organic material. It grows and shrinks with humidity changes. And here in Colorado, It ain't that high on the humidity scale. They mostly shrank rather than growing. So what happened was, this was a tighter grained board right here. And because of that, it shrank more than a broader grained board over here. That's really all that happened. And that's going to happen, and that's okay. We're all used to it. We're all used to seeing it. But my point is, I had an eighth. Let's say this is now, it started as an eighth, that's now a quarter, and this is probably 3/8, almost a half inch. A little less than a half inch, 3/8, a little less than a quarter, almost a half. Get it? Look, here's what I could have done. A little bit more time, a little bit more planning. All you need to know for an out of square deck is what is that precise dimension where it landed to the house and this one. And then you just make it up. If you're out an inch, but you've got like 20 boards, each board only needs to be angled a 20th of an inch down the whole line. I could have made up that difference here by just adding, 20th of an inch. It's like, you can barely see a 16th, and that's smaller than a 16th. So it's not quite a 32nd, but it's just a tiny smidge of each of these boards being very slightly pushed this way would have squared everything by the time I reached the outside edge. All right, so let's wrap this up. This was enough of a brain dump. That's probably the bulk of things I would have changed on the outside. There's some other little bits and pieces. I think I could have done a better intersection with my roofs here. Gotten the height of this a little bit more consistent, but it's fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's not leaking or anything. So I'm not really unhappy with it. If you have any questions or just want suggestions, if you're thinking about a project on your own, definitely drop me a comment. I'm happy to talk about this stuff there. And if there's stuff that's been on your mind, this is all fresh in my head. Learn from my mistakes. Don't repeat mine. Maybe I can help you avoid one of your own. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with us. And over the next week, what you're going to see is that backside. I'm going to finish all that zip tape over the next day or two. And this weekend, I'm going to start in on siding on that side. And then I'll try to document that process as I go. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon.